We thank you for this in Christ's name. Amen. All right. So, Proverbs chapter 9. I did not prepare anything from Psalms chapter 9, so that would be not good. So, I could wing it, but I usually like to prepare a little bit before I do something. So, Proverbs chapter 9 is another narrative. It's one of exactly the last one before there's a huge chunk of just those one or two verse Proverbs that we kind of associate with Solomon's wisdom. And so we've talked through the first 6 verses and talk about wisdom preparing a house, wisdom preparing for a feast, and the kind of feast she prepares, who she invites, how she invites, and that at the end of this, then there's a contrast of the fact that forsake foolishness and live, and go in the way of understanding. So the choice is follow wisdom's invitation, seize the opportunity that she gives, or continue in the way of foolishness. So that's a real quick summary of 1 through 6. So we're going to pick up in verse 7 of chapter 9. So we'll put up our window pane. He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself, and he who rebukes a wicked man only does harm. So, only harms himself. Sorry. Where would you put this in our window pane? Miss Leah. And, okay, I think that's a one that could be there. I think there's a few more we could pick. People, yeah, because it talks about correcting a scoffer and a wicked man. Who are you going to listen to? Which voice? And I think there's one more. I picked teachable, because the man that's the desire is to teach, but the one who's on the receiving end is not willing to be taught. So, what kind of person is being talked about? Not who is being talked to, who is being talked about. A scorner, okay. What other terms, depending on your translation? I know you said something, Barb, but I didn't hear what you said. Wicked man, okay. A mocker, okay, good, that's helpful. Anything else? Scoffer, and that's how New King James translates it. So, who is this man? Now you have to think back, or you might, if you have your card, I think it's on the back side where the window pane is, where it talks about the different kind of people. I don't know, it might not give a full definition, but I think I put it on there. Their heart is hardened. Okay? So is this a fool? No, they don't call him a fool, but it's also, Pastor Barris Ron calls him a full-grown fool. Incapable of correction. Okay, he or she is way down the path. Their heart has been hardened, as Andrea just said. And they believe that the only wise person in the room is who? Them. Exactly right. They're the smartest. They're the wisest. They know more than anybody else. They don't have to listen to anybody else. They do not accept correction. And in fact, some of the commentators will argue that they can't, even if they accept it, they're incapable of applying it. They hear it, but they can't figure out what to do with it. They don't. In other Proverbs, they talk about them hating the truth, mocking God, and they despise people who are truly wise. So this is the man, or the kind of person that is in verse 7. Before you or anyone else opens their mouth, what do you know the response of someone like this will be? I'm not listening. If they are willing to listen, or at least hear the words that come out of your mouth, what are they going to do? What are they going to say? I know better than you. They're going to argue why you're wrong. They're going to or tell you why you're wrong, tell you why they're right. So how do we normally want to deal with these people or this kind of person? How would you approach them? What would you say if you know this is what they're like? So Althea says we should pray first, and I agree with that. Let them hang. Yeah, that's kind of what Solomon's saying, right? You know, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Now, some of us will try with these people, and maybe we shouldn't, but we do try. But Solomon says you shouldn't waste your time, because if you choose to waste your time, what is going to happen to you? You'll be abused. Shame and harm. And we could add a wasting our time, wasting our efforts. You know. So the wicked man or the scoffer is listed here, but they're put out there as the contrast to the wise man. So what? And the implication is this is what you don't do. So if this is what you don't do, what is Solomon implying that you should do? What does the wise person do if they're the exact opposite of the scoffer or the wicked man? They'll appreciate correction. They'll appreciate instruction. They'll even appreciate rebuke. Maybe not at first, but they will recognize the fact that there's value in it, and they can grow and change because of it. So verse 8, do not correct a scoffer lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man and he will love you. So the first verse, or verse 7, is all about the same kind of man. There's a contrast between the first and second half of the verse, between the scoffer and the wise man. So where can we put this verse 8, in our window pane? What do you think? People, yep. There's certainly the wise and the scoffer are in there. What else? Tongue, that's one I didn't think of, but that could fit. Okay, principle. Teachable. I thought of the end because it tells you if you do this, here's the consequences. But you had some good input as well. So the two kind of people that are contrasted in verse 8 are what? The scoffer and the wise. Now we talked about the scoffer or the full-grown fool a moment ago. Let's remind ourselves what a wise person does or what they're like. And again, that can be on the back. I think there's some information on the back of your card, so you can refresh your memories. They listen to the truth. Good. Did I put anything else? Is that it, Carl? Submitting to God, yeah. And from the first 8 chapters of Proverbs, what else can we add about the wise? What can you remember? Some things that the wise were described as or talked about. Mm-hmm. So they certainly would not only submit to God, as Carl said, but fear God. Who do they listen to? Okay, so I would argue we could describe that broadly as wisdom. You know, they're willing to listen to wisdom where the scoffer would not be willing to listen. They're teachable. I mean, you can look at the window pane. They're teachable. They're godly. They use their tongue the right way. They're on the right path. The wise have the ability to apply insights to immediate circumstances for the long-term good of themselves and others. So they have the wisdom, they have the information, they have the knowledge, and they say, this is how you live wisely now so that the future is what honors God and what looks like it should. So how do the scoffer and the wise person differ in their response in verse 8? Polar opposites. So the scoffer does what? He hates you. Doesn't say he hates rebuke. He hates the person who gives it, which is really interesting. And if you correct or rebuke someone who is wise, how do they respond? They love you. They appreciate it. They're grateful and thankful for that input. Now again, they may be wise and take it hard, but eventually they're going to realize that. Not everybody enjoys correction, but eventually they get the point. So, I have a question for you. This is a thought question, an application question. Which do we think we are? Do we think we're wise, or do we think we're the scoffer? Okay? Which do we think we are? Now, how does our response to correction and rebuke show what we are? Again, I'm not asking you to answer that. This thought process. So Solomon says, whether we think we're wise or not, our response to correction and rebuke reveal which end of the spectrum we're closer to than necessarily what we think we are. All right. So, verse 9. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. So, where does this fit? Teachable, yep, that's easy. That's one of the ones I thought of. I think there's at least two more we can have as potential window panes for it. Okay, that's not one I thought of, but I can't argue with that. Paths, that's not one I thought of, but I think that could fit as well. I thought about the idea of obviously the end, because he will become wiser, he will increase in learning, but it's also the people, because it's talking about the wise man and a just man. So as this one is the same as verse 7, but in reverse, it's an intensification. It's the two parts of the particular verse are all about the same thing. So we know what kind of person is being talked about, a wise man or a just man. How are they connected? Or how do you think they're connected? I think that's a fair question. Can you be truly wise without being righteous? Let's turn around. Can you be wise and not be righteous? I think that what Solomon's here is he's building. He said, give instruction to a wise man and he will still be wiser. So this is where we begin. And the second half builds on that. Teach a just man and he will increase in learning. If you are wise, truly biblically wise, Solomon says it's going to lead to you being just, because you're going to make the right decisions for yourself and others. When a wise person is instructed, what happens? Okay, obeys the instructions, and he learns from it, and therefore, according to Solomon, he will be still wiser. He grows in wisdom. This is in contrast, right, to the scoffer or the fool who doesn't want anything to do with this, and therefore the implication is they don't grow in wisdom because they reject the instruction or the rebuke or the correction. And therefore, a just man is the result of wisdom, and he's going to increase in learning when you teach them. So, are we wise? Going back to the question I asked before. So there was a contrast with last time, but here it's just talking about wisdom. Are we wise? What does our response to instruction and teaching show we are? How do we respond when we're instructed, when we're taught? This reveals where we are, if we're closer to the fool end of things or the wisdom end of things. Not just, well, I think I'm pretty wise. I make good decisions. God says, here's a test for you. Here's an evaluation. Verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So this should be real easy where this fits. Priority, yeah. Number one, it's where we began. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And also is another, where it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So that's just the start. And it goes from there and grows or intensifies. And it says the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So there's a fear that leads to knowledge. What is implied that fear and knowledge cause? It doesn't say it, but there's an implication. If you fear the Lord, if you have knowledge of the Holy One, what is the implication for our response? Okay. Okay, so that's a contrast. The fools despise wisdom and instruction. What are we to do with this wisdom and knowledge? Is it just for an exam to fill in the blanks and answer the questions? Yeah, so there's an implication that the fear of the Lord and knowledge of the Holy One leads to, or results, or the result of them are obedience. That's the implication. You can't fear the Lord and not obey Him. That's the context. So there's obedience that follows. So, if we say we're wise, that means we qualify as we would fear the Lord and we would have knowledge of the Holy One. So what does our response to God show? Are we wise? Are we obedient? We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about, is there a increasing level of obedience? We can look and say, there are things I used to do that I don't do because I know that they displease God. Or there are things that I didn't do, but I now do because I know they please God. So is there an increase in the obedience and wisdom because of our fear and knowledge of God? So, do you have a question, Barb? No, okay. I thought I saw you. I was looking down and I thought I saw you raise your hand. Verse 11, for by me your days will be multiplied, and the years of life will be added to you. All right. So, where does this one fit? Or where would you put it? Path, okay. And that's the one that I kept coming back to. Any other suggestions? All right. So, who is speaking? So this is kind of a fun discussion, I hope. Because it changes, right? It goes to the first person. You know, we go from the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom to, for by me your days will be multiplied and your years of life will be added to you. So who is the me? Wisdom, okay, that's one. And who might the other, another option of the pronoun referring to, who might that be? Or what might that be? What? God, yeah. And depending on who you read is the answer you'll get. I don't see the Lord speaking here, so I would lean towards the wisdom. But you can make the argument either way because the Lord's really the one who does all that. Probably not, or very few. Yeah, very few. But people will argue that this is, one of the few places where he steps in but I wouldn't buy it, but as I said, I lean towards the me being wisdom, for by wisdom your days will be multiplied. But I can't argue the other one is incorrect because I don't have enough evidence. So, what comes from wisdom? What blessings? A longer life. Okay, now, what does that mean? So, we've got an age range of what, Isaac's 1 plus? 1 plus, all the way up to, whatever, I'm not going to discuss how old some of you ladies are. But, so, define the number of years a long life is? So if you're a year older than someone else, that means you're wiser? Yes, okay. Well, I'm not sure I agree with you, honey, but okay. Well, that means I'm wiser than you because I'm older than you, but yeah, anyway. Is that what it means that if you live to be 85 versus 75, the person who lives to be 85 is wiser? Not necessarily. Okay, I agree with you. So what is Solomon trying to teach us about the blessing of long life that comes from wisdom? So being unwise can shorten your life. Maybe they'll go, it can lead to foolish decisions which are often dangerous decisions. I think that's part of it. But I also think that there is a context of how many people in the Old Testament that are listed in some of the genealogies that say, God took them because they were wicked. Now, we don't look at things like that today, but that was very much a context of the culture where when someone was taken early, it was often noted that they were wicked. I think of Judah's 2 sons who God took their lives because they were wicked. And I think that is also in the context here that if you're wise, God's not going to take you like that for your wickedness because you're going to make decisions that are in the fear of the Lord and in the knowledge of Him. Verse 12. If you are wise for yourself. And if you scoff, you will bear it alone. All right. Where would you put this verse? This is one of those ones that I scratched my head about where this would fit. So I'm not sure there's a best answer. Okay. Or the scoffer versus the wise. Yeah, that's one of the ones I thought was an option. Okay, and yeah, that's another one that I thought was an option. Like I said, I couldn't settle on one that I felt like was the best option. Who makes the choice to be wise or to be a scoffer? You do. So it's a personal choice. Who experiences the result of that choice? So if you choose to be wise, you gain the benefits. Now that doesn't mean other people don't, but you are guaranteed to have the benefits. And if you become a scoffer, then you will also reap the consequences of that. It's a personal choice. Okay? I cannot make the choice to be wise for my children as much as I would like to. As much as some of you have watched your children and say, I wish that I could make this decision for you because I know what's best. And they don't always do that. And they are the ones who then reap the consequences. It's no different than salvation. Salvation is a personal choice that we each have to make. I cannot make it for my children. They cannot make it for their children that will be here someday. So wisdom like salvation or scoffing like salvation is a personal choice. You have to make it for yourself and you gain the benefits for yourself. Looking at the time, trying to see. We can go a few more. We might end up finishing up the chapter. That'd be fine. Verse 13, a foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knows nothing. So we're back to, this is a short narrative one about the clamorous, the foolish woman. So, how is the foolish woman described? Yeah, okay, so clamorous in New King James. ESV says loud. Anybody else? Boisterous. Okay, yeah, these all fit. So some other suggestions that have been made are brash and riotous. Now, that's not the only description of her. What's the second one? Undisciplined. Okay, that's ESV. NIV, okay. Seductive, simple, says New King James. Anything else? Naive. No, it's not, yeah. So you could say gullible, undisciplined, simple, all of these things fit. How attractive is this woman? If you were looking for a spouse for your child or your grandchild, is this the woman you would pick? Hopefully not, sir. No, she's not attractive. This is not these are not attractive qualities. Okay? So the question is, not as a woman, but as what she represents, why would anyone want anything to do with her? You know, the only one who's going to want something to do with her is the one who can't see what she really is and can't see where it's going to end up. And that would be the foolish person or the scoffer, because they're not looking at the true picture. They are like she is. Verse 14, for she sits at the door of her house on a seat by the high places of the city to call to those who pass by, who go straight on their way. Okay. How is the foolish woman similar to wisdom, how she's been described previously? Okay, they're at the gate. They're both calling out to those who pass by. Okay. How is she different? Okay, she's loud. Yeah, going back to the previous couple of verses. When wisdom called out, she was never at her house. She was always out. So for some reason, the foolish woman is not only out, but she's also at home calling out instead of at home working, at home preparing, like we saw at the beginning of the chapter for wisdom preparing her table. What do you think the last phrase of verse 15 means or describes? Okay, Carol said it could be are these people who are avoiding her? Okay. Okay, I think that would fit as well. She's just trying to distract them from what their business, what they're about. Right. Yeah, so there's kind of two pictures that these people are busy and they just don't have time for her, or these are wise people and they know who and what she is, and so they're ignoring her. It's not clear which Solomon is describing. But either way, they are ignoring this woman and what she represents. So 16 and 17. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And as for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. Again, how is she similar to wisdom? Okay. Okay. But there's something different about her than what wisdom offers, especially in the first 6 verses where she prepares her table and her banquet. What's different about that offer of food and lodging versus the woman here at the end of the chapter? Okay, those are stolen. Okay, that's good. There's what else? I think there's another key. Yeah, there's no preparation, right? There's no description that, wisdom. What did wisdom say? Slaughtered her meat, mixed her wine, furnished her table. So she prepares, and the woman at the end of the chapter just says, "Well, come on in. We'll figure it out. We'll steal it from somewhere. We'll take it from someone else." So there's no preparation.
And it's also, when she says eaten in secret, is a lot different than preparing a table and everybody sitting in the open and enjoying together.
So those two, stolen water is sweet and bread eaten in secret is pleasant, those are two euphemisms. So if you know what they are, or you have a note or a study Bible, how does yours explain what they mean? The first one it goes with drink water from your own cistern. Yeah, so the first one has to do with immoral or illicit sex. Okay? So she's offering something that wisdom doesn't. But the bread eaten in secret, any idea what that might be about? What do you do in secret? Usually. That's not, I didn't think you were, surprise parties weren't good. I thought that I was told that a long time ago. So that's it. Yeah, things that are done in secret. Secrets, keep it secret, keep it safe. Anyway, the idea, is this is activities that are illegal or immoral or criminal, things that you don't want to get caught doing. So that's what she's inviting people to. Come on in. This is what we're going to do. And she says, doing this is sweet and pleasant. Is it sweet and pleasant or not? Yeah, for a season or for a moment. But wisdom looks long term and says, yeah, it might be fun for a moment or it might be enjoyable, but long term it's going to bring pain and suffering and consequences. She is different than wisdom because she appeals to what? Or she titillates or stimulates what in her guests? Base desire, yeah. Carnality, base desires. Wisdom does the opposite. It uplifts, it encourages you to make wise choices, to be just, to be righteous, to be holy. The last verse of the chapter tonight, verse 18. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of hell. So who is he talking to or talking about? Yeah, so the people she's calling to from the street. What doesn't he know? wickedness that is there, the end that comes if you follow this woman, this foolish woman. Okay? Foolishness and wisdom, both, if we follow one, if we follow the other, both lead to specific consequences. Wisdom leads to life and to peace and to justice and to uprightness. This other woman leads to death, negative, life-ending consequences, not life-affirming or life-building. You know, going back to the idea that the fear of our Lord, for by me your days will be multiplied and your years will be added. That's the contrast to the end. If you follow the fear of the Lord and wisdom, your life is longer because you don't make foolish decisions. If you follow a foolish woman, you're going to make foolish decisions. Your life is going to be shorter. So as I said, when we start chapter 10, we had a few of them that were single verses, but chapter 10, and for the next multiple chapters, it is what we think of as traditional Proverbs, the short one or two phrases put together, or several of them are grouped together on the same topic, and but otherwise you might have one on one topic and one right after on another. So there's approximately 400 plus Proverbs in this next section that are like that, just one or two verses that may not be related to anything around it, just pithy snippets of wisdom that are easy to remember but hard to apply and hard to live out if we think about it. Questions, comments about the rest of chapter 9 before we close up in prayer?
Her daughter had, in their church in Michigan, they were reaching out to a school, and they were told not to use any biblical things. But she said, well, I'm going to use some Proverbs, and maybe they won't recognize what they're biblical.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when I mentioned this morning that there was a book of English Proverbs in the 1600s. And Benjamin Franklin's famous for having them. But yeah, some of these don't mention God, but they're built on godly principles and biblical principles. So, anything else? All right, well, let's close in prayer. And I can't see outside, so hopefully the snow has stopped. You'll have a safe trip home. Father, we thank you for chapter 9. We thank you for the challenges of the evaluation that you give us, not just simply saying, are we wise, but are we living and making decisions in a way that demonstrates we're wise? Our response to correction, our response to instruction, how do we handle those things? Does that show we're growing in wisdom or we're not growing in wisdom? We're still simple or foolish. Lord, as we look to step into our week, finish up Sunday and be preparing for Monday, we ask that we would remember what we've heard this morning in Sunday school and church and this evening, that we would be reminded of what you have spoken to us about, challenged us with, convicted us with, and that we would respond wisely to it. We thank you for the opportunity and privilege of being here. We thank you for the other things that have gone on today and are going on now with small groups and Pursue. We ask that we continue to speak into the hearts and lives of the people that are involved in that, and encourage and bless those that are putting in the effort to lead and to minister to others. We look forward to being salt and light, being a testimony this week, and for pleasing and glorifying you wherever we are, whoever we're with, and whatever we're doing. We thank you for this in the name of your Son. Amen.